Do you ever find yourself hesitating to pursue your goals and dreams because of the fear of failure? If so, my friend, you're not alone. Actually, this fear is probably one of the top fears that keeps people from success. Well, in this video, we're going to be talking about how to overcome the crippling effects of the fear of failure and how you can pursue your dreams without failing or the fear of failing. But before we get into all those good points, let's first define or reveal the problem when it comes to the fear of failure. I wrote the fear of failure poses significant barriers to entrepreneurial success, personal growth, and overall well being. It can manifest as debilitating self doubt, paralyzing procrastination, and an aversion to challenges, preventing individuals from taking necessary risks and seizing opportunities. This fear limits innovation and creativity. It stifles progress and perpetuates a cycle of stagnation and missed opportunities. Moreover, it undermines confidence and resilience, eroding self esteem and hindering the pursuit of ambitious goals. Addressing the fear of failure is essential for unlocking your potential, fostering growth, and achieving success in both professional and personal endeavors. So I'm going to read through that again, break it down sentence by sentence if I need to kind of help us really understand the problems with this. It says the fear of failure poses significant barriers to entrepreneurial success. So there's some entrepreneurs watching me right now, and you're afraid to go to that next level because you're afraid that you're going to fail big. No, what right now you have some success. Right now, you have accomplished some things, but you're comfortable here. And maybe you feel the fear of failure because now God has brought promotion. Maybe your job has brought promotion. And now you're thinking, hey, am I actually qualified? If I fail, there's more eyes to see. So there's a lot of individuals entrepreneurially who are stagnated because of fear of failure. It also says it creates barriers to personal growth and overall well being. It says it can manifest in forms of self doubt, procrastination, and aversion to challenges, preventing individuals from taking necessary risk and seizing opportunities. I always tell people that everything worth having is on the opposite side of fear. Let me say it again. Everything worth having is on the opposite side of fear. So, what does that mean? Everything that God has for you, you're going to have to fight through fear to get it. And in life, you're going to find yourself afraid. You're going to find yourself nervous. You're going to find yourself hesitant. But when you begin to understand that on the opposite side of whatever this is, in the context of fear, is what I really want near, then you'll pursue it. It also says from taking necessary risk and seizing opportunities. This fear limits innovation and creativity, stifles progress, and perpetuates a cycle of stagnation and missed opportunities. So that's layered there. That if you allow yourself to be crippled by the fear of failure, then there won't be no innovation. My friends, I don't mind failing. I'm not saying failing in marriage or failing in my walk with God. I'm talking about failing in the pursuit of success because failure provides feedback. Failure gives you insight. Failure leads you to innovation. And if you're allowing the fear of failure to cripple you, you won't innovate. You won't create opportunities for yourself. And you'll begin to find yourself on the outside watching everybody else win. It says, moreover, it undermines confidence and resilience, eroding self esteem, and hindering the pursuit of ambitious goals. So we see that the fear of failure cripples us and it keeps us from the success that God desires for us to walk into. Now, I want to talk real briefly about the 5 misbeliefs of fear of failure. For the next few videos onward, probably all of my videos, you're going to be really hearing this a lot of me tackling or debunking the misbeliefs of a topic. Oftentimes, us coaches, us preachers, us teachers can create videos and content, and we have great content, we have great insight, but the individual will come off that video still with the misbeliefs. If I can debunk the misbeliefs, then you'll begin to say, okay, now that my beliefs are debunked, now I can really see clearly on the issues keeping me from having this success. So the 5 misbeliefs of the fear of failure are these. Number 1, the first misbelief is it's a sign of weakness to admit fear. Some people watching me right now, you have that misbelief. You actually believe that it's a sign of weakness to admit fear. That's what I wrote. Many perceive admitting fear as a sign of weakness or inadequacy. Fearing it will diminish their credibility or reputation. However, acknowledging fear is an essential step in understanding and overcoming it. It takes courage to confront and address one's fears, demonstrating self-awareness, and resilience. So if you have that misbelief, you have to understand it is not a weakness to admit that you are afraid. It is actually commendable. Like, in order for faith to fuel you and to fill you, you have to admit that you are afraid. Listen, I don't care what credibility is lost. I don't care how people see you. You got to begin to say, hey, I have this thought pattern that's keeping me from the path I need to walk on. And I got to admit that I am afraid. It is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. Number 2, failure is permanent and irreversible. Some of you all may have this misbelief about the fear of failure. Failure is permanent and irreversible. Here's the debunction. There's a common misconception that failure is a final and irreversible outcome. In reality, failure is often a temporary setback or learning opportunity on the path to success. Embracing a growth mindset allows us to view failure as a valuable stepping stone towards personal and professional development rather than a permanent defeat. Please allow that to sink in. A lot of people are afraid to go after that next level because of this devil. They actually believe that failure is permanent and irreversible. Let's read it again. There's a common misconception that failure is a final and irreversible outcome. That's a lie. In reality, failure is often a temporary setback or a learning opportunity on the path to success. Please understand that when you're pursuing the path of success, you're going to fail. And if you don't shift the way you see failure, then you won't be a equipped sailor. You won't be able to navigate the seas of life, right? It says that in reality, failure is often a temporary setback. It was meant to be temporary. The issue is we allow a temporary moment of failure to become a permanent thing. And we allow that a failure to feed our minds, keeping us from being productive in time. Also, it says that failure is a learning opportunity on the path to success. So you have to shift the way you see failure, because you'll begin to say, hey, this is just a temporary setback. And what can I learn from this failure? Do you know how many times I failed in business? How many times I failed in ministry? How many times I started a product and failed? But in those failures, there were lessons. See, if you followed my Instagram stories when I hoop, I always put wins and lessons, never wins and losses. That's a mental construct. That's a mental way of that's the right perspective. I don't lose, I learn. Right? And so when you adopt that mentality, you'll begin to say, hey, this is an opportunity for me to learn and grow. It says embracing a growth mindset allows us to view failure as a valuable stepping stone towards personal and professional development rather than a permanent defeat. How do you view your failures? Do you view it as irreversible, or do you view it as a valuable stepping stone towards personal and professional development? Because only you allow failure to be a permanent thing. The third misbelief about the fear of failure is success means avoiding failure altogether. That's not true either. Some people believe that true success means that I have to avoid failure. Many believe that success is synonymous with perfection or flawlessness, requiring them to avoid failure at all costs. However, true success often involves taking calculated risks, learning from mistakes, and persevering in the face of adversity. Embracing failure as a natural part of the journey fosters resilience and innovation, ultimately leading to greater achievement. So, success is not always synonymous or is never synonymous with perfection or flawlessness. Some people are like, I'm so afraid to fail because then I won't have a perfect record. My friend, the only one who ever had a perfect record was Jesus. And because of his perfect record, now we can continue on in the sanctification process and watch God do perfect things through imperfections. So success is not synonymous to perfection or flawlessness. This was a big issue of mine. When I was starting my YouTube videos, or when I was starting to preach in front of people, if I made a mistake, I would scrap the message. I would beat myself up after the message. I'd be like, man, I stuttered. Even in some of my videos now, you'll see me stutter. You'll see me stumble. But the old JE, the old Coach Josh, the old Mr. Ezzy, yo, I felt like I had to be flawless. I felt like I had to be perfect. I remember when I was a little kid, back in my day, we didn't have typewriters. Well, we had typewriters, but we didn't have computers like that. And so we had to write in cursive. As I was writing in cursive, I could be 75% down in the page. If I messed up on my L, if my T didn't come out right, if my C's looked crooked, if my eyes looked ugly, I would tear that page, throw it away, start over. That type of ideology will keep you from success. So I know what it's like to feel like true success is flawless. But my friend, it is not the case. It says, however, true success often involves taking calculated risk, learning from mistakes, and persevering in the face of adversity. Embracing failure as a natural part of the journey fosters resilience and innovation, ultimately leading to greater achievements. The fourth misbelief about the fear of failure is this: failure defines your worth as a person. It's the one I'm going to labor a little bit longer on, because through my coaching with entrepreneurs, anybody, usually this is the real reason of why they're afraid to fail, or why they don't really go after their dreams and goals, and why they don't want to write that book, or why they don't want to create that album, why they don't want to start that business. This is the main thing. This misbelief says failure defines your worth as a person. Let's read. There's a harmful misconception that failure reflects one's inherent worth or value as a person. In reality, failure is an event or outcome, not a reflection of an individual's character or identity. Separating failure from self-worth allows us to maintain confidence and self-esteem even in the face of setbacks or challenge. So failure does not define your worth. Your inherent worth comes from God. I don't care how many times you failed. I don't care how many times you messed up. That doesn't have anything to do about you as a person. I remember when I used to fall into sin like that, man, guilt, shame, and condemnation used to wreck me. Used to be on my mind for weeks because I got into works righteousness. I thought that I had to be perfect for God to love me. I felt like that I had to do everything right for God to love me. And when I fell into pornography, or when I fell into these different sins, or I fell into lying, or I fell into whatever it is, when after I saw the result and the fruit of my failure, I begin to think that I was a failure. I tell kids all the time in my school that I teach at, they'll get D's and they'll get F's. I'll tell them all the time, your grades don't define you. We live in a world where everyone is defining themselves after any and everything but God. I tell kids all the time, ain't nobody checking for my 9th grade grades. Nobody's checking about my grades in junior year. But how many people feel like I have to succeed at all costs, because if not, I'm nobody? That is a harmful misconception. It says there's a harmful misconception that failure reflects. That means your failure then reflects who you are as a person. But it says in reality, failure is an event or an outcome, not a reflection of an individual's character and identity. So you got to say, okay, yeah, I failed, but I'm not a failure. Big difference. Yes, you failed, but no, you're not a failure. Say that with me. Yes, I failed, but I'm not a failure. That has to be an affirmation that you say, or something that you remind yourself of, so that when you fail, you will say, I will not identify myself with this failure. How many of y'all right now are still crippled because your dad said you was a failure, or made you feel like you was a failure, or your mom made you feel like you was a failure, or called you a failure, or a teacher called you a failure? They're liars. Did they create you? Most people allow what other people say about them to make them feel like they're a failure. So why try to succeed? Or I have to be perfect because what I do is a reflection of who I am. That's not the case. Who you are is a reflection of what God did. It says separating failure from self-worth allows us to maintain confidence and self-esteem even in the face of setbacks or challenge. So you have to learn how to separate failure from self-worth. Because if you don't separate it two, you won't sustain confidence and self-esteem. Listen, when I failed, there's not an ounce of me, and it used to be different. When I failed, oh man, I failed. Like when I failed, I stopped selling. I was like, no, this ship is staying here. No, but now when I fail, what can I learn? What can I learn so I can earn? But a lot of people don't know how to do that. We're going to get to how we can help you with that. But we have to separate self-worth and failure so that when we fail, we can sustain that confidence and self-esteem even in the face of a failing moment. Number 5, another misbelief when it comes to the fear of failure and why it cripples a lot of people from going forward and pursuing their God-given dream and goals. Others will judge and ridicule you for failing. Others will judge and ridicule you for failing. That is a harmful, erroneous misbelief that a lot of people believe. I wrote, fear of judgment or ridicule from others often contributes to the fear of failure. However, in most cases, people are more empathetic and understanding than we might anticipate. Sharing failures openly can foster connections and empathy, as others may relate to similar experiences or struggles. Additionally, perceived judgment from others is often exaggerated or unfounded, highlighting the importance of self-compassion and resilience in the face of fear. This is big. It says fear of judgment, ridicule from others often contributes to fear of failure. We'll keep going. However, in most cases, people are more empathetic. You'll be surprised how many people can relate, how many people will understand. That's why the Bible says confess your sins one to another so that you might be healed. Sometimes we have to confess this sin of thought, this sin of mind to the right people so that we'll be able to say, oh, you struggle with that. So now you felt my story. You connected with me because you're like, oh, coach was afraid to fail. Oh, you best believe it. And then you can glean from my testimony so that when you pass your test, you can have a testimony that will help other people pass their tests and create a testimony. Because you don't want fear to paralyze you. And you heard the acronym that fear is false evidences appearing real. Sharing failures openly can foster connections and empathy as others may relate to a similar experience and struggles. Additionally, perceived judgments from others is often exaggerated or unfounded, meaning that most of the times that fear of failure in our minds, of thinking that other people may ridicule us or judge us, we exaggerate it. It's not even that deep for a lot of people. And those who is deep for, don't drown with them. But it says, highlighting the importance of self-compassion and resilience in the face of fear. You got to love yourself and be compassionate with you. Now, you've already heard my stories with the fear of failure. Like plenty of times growing up for me, I was afraid to fail because I felt like I had to be perfect. I was always called goody two shoes. I was always called a lot of different terms in regards to the Christian boy or the Christian guy. And that plagued on my mentality because I felt like if I failed, I would disappoint a lot of people. And I felt that I had to be perfect because people looked up to me. And I realized I didn't allow the full gospel to hit my soul to let me know that it's okay to fail. Like it's okay to make mistakes if you want to learn from that. It's okay to be human in the hands of God. It's okay to go through life and face those fears and fail and stumble. Even my most viral video, if you go to my YouTube channel right now, you will see the Proverbs 31 woman went viral a long time ago. It was about almost 500,000 views in that video. If you watch that video, I say something along the lines of, let's start over and let's see what we could do better from here. Right before I did that video, I stuttered so bad. I stuttered. And it was about 70 people in the room. And imagine being on the stage and you already an introvert and you already, you know what I mean? And you got 70 people ready to hear from you live about the Proverbs 31 woman. And when it's time for you to speak, you stumble for about 6 seconds. If I did not conquer that fear of failure previously, I would have just said, you know what? I'm not going to do this video or I'm not going to do this message. I'm going to kind of give y'all a little something, but I'm not going to give you what I'm feeling. I wouldn't have had a viral moment. So what am I saying? I don't care if you stutter. I don't care if you stumble. I don't care if you make a mistake. I don't care where you are. There's benefits to facing that failure because most people in the audience of your life are not going to see what you see. A lot of people in the audience of your life, they're not going to recognize that you failed. You have to begin to say, hey, I am going to continue to press on, and I'm not going to be afraid to fail because if I'm afraid to fail, I won't be able to sail. Now, here's a framework that I have that I help my clients through when I coach them, especially entrepreneurs who come to me and they say, Coach, I got this big project. I got this big promotion coming up. I'm excited, but I'm also crippled by this fear of failure. And if I talk to a mom or a dad, a lot of people that struggle with their past failures and their fear of failure to becoming a parent. This happened to me when I found out that my wife conceived. Fear of failure tried to creep up. And one thing about these mental blockers, you have to create a resilience because these things will try to resurface. Because when you get to a greater situation, you're going to have to deal with, will I fail at this? So what if I do? If I'm a quick learner, I'm a quick earner, right? So let's talk about this framework that spells fail. This is what you do when you fail, okay? This is what I walk my clients through. I'm going to walk you through them as well. And of course, if you need more support in this, I got you. Number 1, F, face your fears. When you fail, face your fears. I wrote identify and acknowledge the specific fears you have about failure. Write them down and confront them head on. So you get a sheet of paper when you fail, or you may not be failing right now, but you have apprehensions about failing. I want you to write what your specific fears about failure is. Are your fears mainly about that you feel like it's a sign of weakness? Do you feel like that failure is permanent, irreversible? Do you feel like failure means avoiding failure altogether? That means success means avoiding failure altogether. Do you believe that failure defines your worth as a person? Do you feel like others will judge and ridicule you for failing? Whatever, if it's one of those 5 misconceptions, then write those things down, because that's a fear. Then you got to confront them head on. So what I would say is to create an affirmation against those. So if you have, it's a sign of weakness to admit fear, all you got to do is reverse engineer that thought. It is not a sign of weakness to admit my fears. Next, you got to begin to tell yourself failure is not permanent or irreversible. Then you got to say success does not mean avoiding fear altogether. Then you got to say failure doesn't define my worth. God does. Then you got to say stuff like, who cares if people ridicule or judge me for failing? I'm going to learn from this. So you got to face your fears head on. If not, you won't be able to face your success head on. Number 2 in this framework is analyze potential outcomes. Assess the worst case scenarios if your feared failure were to happen. Assess the worst case scenario. Like, really think about it. Often the perceived consequences are not as dire as they seem. So this is what I tell people to do. Analyze it. Like, really think about the worst case scenario if you were to fail. Envision the worst case scenario of your feared failure coming to pass. When you think about it, you begin to say, man, this is not as bad. You'll be like, so what if they ridicule me? So what? Like, you'll begin to really realize that a lot of the fears we have are not really worth being afraid of. After you done faced your fears, F, and A, analyze potential outcomes, thirdly, you have to increase your self-confidence. Boost your self-esteem and belief in your abilities by focusing on past successes and positive affirmations. Remind yourself of your strengths and capabilities. Increase your confidence in Christ. Your confidence comes from Him. The Bible says you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. God has given you a newfound sense of self-worth, sense of identity. And when you begin to identify yourself in Christ, identify yourself in what God has made you to be in Himself, then you will increase your confidence, boost your self-esteem, and actually believe that if God gave me these abilities, I can. Listen, you got to have the mentality that you will win, that you can win, that you were created for such a time as this. You are not an accident, that God has given you these abilities, these gifts and talents for you to refine, so that in time you can win at a high level. So face that fear, man. Increase your confidence. Listen, when I realized that God has gifted me to speak, that God has gifted me to write, that God has gifted me in the capabilities that I execute in, I don't care if I stutter, stumble through this whole video. I'm going to show back up tomorrow. And you got to show up. Do you know that if you don't face your fears, your children won't be able to face theirs? Give me 1 second. If you don't face your fears, how can you teach your children to face theirs? And if you don't face your fears, you would be too paralyzed to achieve the promises that God wants you to pass down generationally. Think about that. Could it be that your fear of failure has caused you to live in a certain state of life that your kids now have to suffer from? That your marriage have to suffer from? How many of you all right now should have been start that business, which would have perpetuated a level of growth that would have created a level of success where you're able to succeed at a high level? So you have to increase your self-confidence. Last but not least, L, learn from setbacks. In order to face your fears when you fail, F, you got to face them. A, you have to analyze potential outcomes. I, you must increase your self-confidence. And last but not least, you must learn from the setback. Embrace failure as a learning opportunity rather than a reflection of your worth. Reflect on what went wrong, what you can improve, and how you can grow from the experience. My friend, if you just adopt the L, you can remove all the hell. If you could just say, you know what, I'm going to reflect on what went wrong. What did I do wrong? See, when you begin to separate wrong from your self-worth, then you can really have an honest conversation with yourself. You can really do a thorough analyzation of what went wrong without feeling like you're wrong. You did something wrong, but that doesn't mean you're not right for the situation. That doesn't mean that because you did something wrong that you're not right for you're not the right person. Do you know you can still be the right person even if you did something wrong? You can still be the right person even if you fail. But if your self-worth and self-esteem is in God, then you can really have these honest conversations. You can reflect on what went wrong. What went wrong in my marriage? What went wrong in my singles? What went wrong in this particular thing I did? What went wrong? Next question, what can I improve? How can I get better? And how can I grow from this experience? My friends, when you fail, if you face your fears and analyze and increase your self-confidence and learn from setbacks, then you will see failure as a tool that's a feedback to help you feed back. I love feedback because now I can feed back. I need feedback so I can feed back into what I'm doing. So failure is a tool. Failure is a tool that will give you feedback so that you can go back and then feed back into that path of success. So I pray this video is a blessing to you. If you feel like, yo, this resonates with you and you really want to overcome the fear of failure and you want to get to a place where you experience a transformation, where you're able to face any setback, any experience, any situation with full confidence and with the mindset that's ready to learn, then I have a couple of resources for you that I think will be a blessing to you, especially some of you. If you really want to work on the mindset version of it, check out Mindset Mastery. It's a coaching program that I have that's going to help you go through these frameworks to patch up that hole mentally so that you can be able to hold the things of life through a mindset that's an asset, not a liability. So if you want to get to a place where you're able to pursue your dreams at a high level, where you're able to go after your goals without the fear of failure, where you're able to succeed at a high level, then check out my program, Mindset Mastery. I'll post that link right now. We start June 10th. Now, June 10th, we on phase 3 of the program. And so we're going to be talking about is our focus for this version of the Mindset program is next level thinking. This program is designed for you to think at the next level so that you can rise to the next level. And so let me post that link just for those who's watching live, those who's watching later. The link is in the description box below so you can check that out there. And if you're an entrepreneur and you like, Coach, I have this crippling thing in my mind that is contributing to me being nervous about the next level. Coach, I got a promotion coming up. I have an opportunity coming up. Coach, I'm married. Coach, I just had a child. And I'm afraid that I'm going to fail. And if you're that person and you desire that transformation where you're able to say, you know what, I'm going to face this parenting with belief. I'm going to face this marriage with belief. My friend, I've been there. When I first got married, man, I was afraid I was going to fail. I put too much pressure on me. I thought that will I end up in a divorce like my parents did? Am I going to end up like divorce like everyone else? And then when I had my daughter, I felt like that fear of failure crept up. But because God has shifted my mindset and renewed my mind, I said, man, if God be for me, who or what can be against me? And if you want to have that level of confidence and belief that you can reach that next level in your marriage, reach that next level in your business, reach that next level in your career, and not be afraid to fail because you know that you can learn from it, then check out my Wholepreneurship coaching program, which is designed for entrepreneurs, high achievers, and doers, people who are like, I'm go-getters, I'm here. But Coach, I stumbled into a big brick wall here, and I'm afraid that I'm gonna fail. Then this coaching program will be a great tool for you. Let's see if I have any books or card games that will help you with this. Facts Over Films would be a good book. I'll go through those books a little bit later. I'm going to take some time to answer a couple of questions. Living Adventure says, I feel like a failure sometimes. That feeling is a feeling, but it's not factual. We cannot live off of feelings. Feelings only let us know how we currently feel about a particular thing. We're supposed to take our feelings and use the framework of our mind to filter through why this feeling is there, because that feeling is there for a particular reason. So you got to assess, do I have a generational hold? Do I feel like a failure because of what happened when I was growing up? Do you feel like a failure because of your upbringing? Do you feel like a failure because everybody had too high of expectations for you that was unrealistic? Does it come from personal holes? Do you feel like a failure because there's holes in you spiritually? There's holes in your theology. You feel like a failure because you think that God views you that way. Is there holes in you mentally where you don't know how to process a failure? Is there holes in you emotionally where you feel like you don't have no regulating skills to help you overcome that failure? Do you have physical holes in your life where you feel like, well, I'm not as athletic as them, I'm not as built as she is or they are, and so you feel like a failure because you can't keep up physically? Or do you have a relationship holes that's make you feel like a failure? Maybe you was bad in relationships, or someone left you and you felt like you didn't really meet your end of the deal. That feeling of failure sprouting out from some level of crack in your foundations, spiritually, generationally, mentally, emotionally, physically, relationally, or professionally. Maybe you have holes professionally where you feel like, well, I failed so many times and people didn't recognize it, or people wasn't there for me, and now you feel like a failure. So once you find those holes, then you can go to God and begin to assess and process them and find out what the word of God says about that, so that when you fail, you can separate the feeling from the facts. You'll begin to say, hey, the fact is, I'm not a failure. So what I want you to do, Living Adventure, I want you to get a sheet of paper and just go through that framework again and write down what that failure is. Analyze that failure. Find the root of that failure. And then create an affirmation that says, I failed, but I'm not a failure. Every time that creeps up and you think about it, remind yourself, I am not a failure. And then begin to assess your best and be like, God gave me these great talents and skills. So why am I going to let this feeling keep me from fulfilling? Living Adventure says, when you expected to be a certain position in life, good, thank you. Now we uncover some things. When you expect it, before you can expect, you have to inspect. Before you can expect, you have to inspect. Before you can expect, you have to detect. You have to be a detective. You have to inspect. What do I mean by that? A lot of us, we create expectations. Like, I should be married by this time, or I should have kids by this time. I should have this amount of money by this time. My business should have grown by this time. My ministry should have grown by this time. And we have these expectations without no inspections. So you have to inspect and say, you know what? I got to inspect my life. Am I doing what I need to do to put myself in position? A lot of people are in a waiting position, waiting for God to do things, but they have yet to put themselves in position to win. You also got to detect, be a detective. You got to detect, what is God doing in your life right now? What is God trying to show you right now, right? So when you begin to inspect and detect, you'll begin to say, I can accurately expect. That if you inspect and realize, I got holes generationally, I got holes mentally, emotionally, physically, I got holes all over the place that I have not healed from, I have not bridged the gap with, I have not been made whole with. That's why I create a wholepreneurship. Because a lot of people are trying to go after success, and they're successful financially, successful professionally, but they got holes that's causing that money to leak, causing the opportunity to leak. And a lot of people haven't done a thorough inspection of to even qualify for the positions. Any job is going to ask for your resume. Before they can release the benefits, you have to meet their requirements. In order for them to see you, if you meet their requirements, they have to look at your resume. So when you inspect your resume, and it shows that you're not qualified for the position you desire, then one or two things you're going to do. Either you're going to be mad at God and go run away from him, or you're going to say, okay, God, I see, I've inspected, I've detected, and now I'm going to make myself better. Because when you do that and you meet the requirements and your resume is solid, then you can begin to enjoy the benefits of a position. No job gives benefits without examining a resume to see if you meet the requirements. So when you begin to think of that terms, then instead of feeling bad about yourself and feeling like you're a failure, you're going to say, you know what? I'm going to make the necessary changes needed for me to succeed with it. So you have to have accurate expectations and say, what am I qualified for at this moment? And you got to do a thorough investigation of your qualifications to make sure that you can operate a level of domination. I mean, a level of excellence, level of efficiency that's a high level. Also, losing friends. Listen, the older you get, the more you lose. And the more you lose, the more you gain. So you got to shift your mindset. So stay with us. Stay with this channel. Stay with other resources. Because, my friend, you're not too far from the promise of God that God has for you. You just got to make a couple of shifts in your mind, and you'll be good to go. Any other questions before I go? Great time with you all. I enjoyed it. I pray it was a blessing to you. Hope you got some out of it. Fear is false evidence is appearing real. There's no need to fear failure. Failure is actually your friend. Couple of resources. I talked about the Mindset Mastery Program. I already talked about the Wholepreneurship Program. Those links are in the live chat, as well as in the description box below, or will be after this live is over. Yeah, y'all know the books. The Purpose Relationship is a great book. If you want to sail these relational seas without sinking, then this book would be a great resource for you. There we go. Yeah, this book would be a great resource for you. Also, if you want to better understand the purposes in your life, so you can function at a high level, to check out my book, Multi-Purpose, because you just don't have one purpose. And if you only think that you have one purpose, then you might not be in a position to actually fulfill that purpose, because you got to fulfill your purpose as a man, as a woman, as a husband, as a wife, as a father, as a mother, as a role model. There's a lot of purposes that you got to fulfill. If you're struggling with soul ties and strongholds and you want to be set free and you want to walk in that freedom and experience that freedom that Christ paid heavily for, then check out my book, The Purpose of Freedom, because whom the Son sets free is free indeed. If you're looking at something right now, you're not quite sure if it's God's best, and you want to know how to accurately test to make sure you only accept God's best and not the devil's pest, then check out this book, Counterfeit to Counterpart. This book designed to help you clearly see the will of God for your life and to only accept God's best. If you struggle with your feelings and you want to, and it's getting in the way of you fulfilling your role as a mother, as a wife, as a husband, as a father, it's getting in the way of you fulfilling your role as a single person, it's hindering the way you fulfill your roles as a business owner, etc., then Facts Over Feelings will be a great resource for you to process your feelings so you get back to fulfilling. If you want to learn more about wholeness and how to hold things for the full duration, and check out this book, The Wholeness Journal. Also check out the card game as well. If you're single and you want to better understand the purpose of your singleness so that you can be better in maximizing it and so that you can actually match the next level, then this book, The Purpose of Singleness, will be a great book for you. Dating Prep has over 200 questions to make sure that without a question that a person's for you. Also, if you're already married to the person, these are great questions to keep that fire going in your marriage, because you're going to have to date that person for the rest of your life. If you have a young person who is about 3rd, 4th, 5th grade and up, and you want them to be about their father's business early and start their art early, then check out my children's book, young person's book called As He Says. As in for the students I serve, great resource there. If you're struggling with spiritual warfare, man, that's a lot of books. I'm telling you. I get tired by the time I get to here. By the time I get to Dating Prep, I'm like, man, all right, a lot of books here. World of War Me is another book. If you're struggling with spiritual warfare, you want to better understand the whole armor of God and how to war well and win the wars within you and the wars that's coming against you, and check out World of War Me. Also check out my first book, Unplugged, to help you unplug from the things of this world and plug into God and stay sourced all the days of your life. Larice says, thank you, Reverend, for this timely message. God bless you, family. I'm so glad it was timely. I don't care if this video was just for you and Living Adventures. It's an honor to do so. I know it's for a lot of other people, but just in case, it's an honor to do so. Fabillion says, I'm testing for my 5th time in the Air Force to be a staff sergeant. I've struggled with the fear of failure. Yes, listen, Thomas Edison failed 1,000 times, and he blessed us all with a light bulb. I don't care if you failed 10 times. If that's what you're supposed to do, learn from each failure. So what I want you to do right now, I want you to write down every time you have failed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and ask yourself, what can you learn from it? Could it be that your sleep habits was off in the first one? Could it be that you ate something that you shouldn't have ate before you took the test? Could it be that you lost a loved one or something had happened negatively? You wasn't socially, emotionally there in your 3rd test? When you begin to realize that you have self-compassion, oh, you failed because of this, make the adjustments and give the next time your best. Because if you allow the fear of failure to sink into your mind, then the next time you take the test, then that's going to be in the back of your mind. You're going to fail. You're going to fail. You're going to fail versus I'm going to prevail. I'm going to prevail. I'm going to prevail. You have to shift your mindset so that you can pass the test. I have a lot of people that join my mindset program or who just ask for mindset coaching with me one-on-one. And man, all you just a couple of tweaks away, my friend, from having a confidence, because confidence is big when test taking. Confidence is big. Once your mindset is secured and solid, my friend, next thing you know, you start passing not just the Air Force test, you'll be passing all kinds of tests because you know that you are your best and you're at rest in God. Hope to help. Love y'all. Y'all be blessed. I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.